So, Austin, is there any speaker lineup?
Silence. We are good begin. Hello, viewers, ladies and gentlemen, the participants and distinguished guests. Welcome to this special virtual conference, Defend Democracy, Defend Humanity. We have come together to stand united against Manipur violence. I am Austin Giltas. I'm glad to be your host for this virtual conference. I'm so privileged to be here today with a lot of leaders from various associations and organizations. Today, we are gathering to address a critical issue that threatens the very essence of our Indian society. So the purpose of this conference is to discuss and uphold democratic values, protect humanity, and unite against the genocide, the violence happening in Manipur, India for the last 3 months. First, I want to extend my gratitude to all the distinguished speakers. When we invited them, they have accepted our invitation and they are ready. So the speakers here, they have been chosen. They are the thought leaders and there are also doers. They do a lot of activism in the field. I also want to extend the participant. So the participant who join on the Zoom and who are watching this program live on various platforms and also who will be viewing this video later. And your presence and support add great value to this virtual conference. So before we begin our the conference and discussion, I would like to acknowledge the efforts of Dr. Father Jegath Gaspar, founder of various organizations, including the RISE Global, Artel, Sangabam, Tamil Women International, many. His guidance and his support is very, very valuable in forming our Defend Democracy team. So on behalf of our core team, Defend Democracy, so I extend our gratitude to Father Jegath Gaspar. So in order to begin, I request Terence to give a short welcome address.
Hello and welcome everyone. I am Terence. Today we come together as a collective force, united by our shared determination to bring an end to the hatred and violence spread by the fascist group in Manipur and bring the justice for the victims. On behalf of the core team, we extend our heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of you for joining us in this critical endeavor. A warm welcome to Dr. Reverend Father Jegath Gaspar, Pieter Friedrich, John Prabhudas, Nyan Hanzo, Raju Rajagopal, Reverend Father Joshua Lichter, Ashan Khan, Vijayalakshmi Nada, George Abraham, Shan Shankaran, and all speakers. Also, a warm welcome to all the people watching this event. Thank you for being a part of this important journey, and may this conference to be a stepping stone towards a better tomorrow. Together, let us sow the seeds of social justice. Let the United Against Manipur Violence Conference begin. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Terence. Terence is our core team member, part of Defend Democracy. So now our founder, Father Jegath Gaspar. Father Jegath Gaspar is a Sunday morning in India. He has to celebrate Mass. Amidst of his busy schedule, he has joined. Welcome, Father. I welcome Father to give us his introductory remarks.
Thank you, Austin. And thank you everyone who are gathered here for this very important initiative. Particularly, I would like to thank and appreciate the team under the leadership of Austin for putting this together. It means a lot of effort, time, and energies. The question of Manipur has also provided us with an opportunity to understand and to effectively respond to the challenges of democracy, freedoms, and human rights in India. The capture of the entire state, not only the state, and related instrumentalities of the state, the capture of media and social power levers by the fascist forces, and the real threat they pose to peace, harmony, and human existence with dignity. Therefore, as our hearts go out for the victims of Manipur, and as we strengthen our resolve today to stand by the victims and ensure justice, not only to the victims from all sides, it's not just Christians, victims, even the Metis people are victims of this fascist scheme of things. So, as we resolve today to stand by the victims and ensure justice for all affected by this senseless and mad violence, we are also called upon today to reflect how we are going to not just defend democracy, but reclaim democracy, reclaim the space for freedoms, particularly as 2024 elections are approaching. And when the fascist forces are deeply entrenched in all power centers of the world today, so there is a huge challenge and responsibility for us to devise strategies and mechanisms to confront the RSS forces, which have become not just threat to global peace and order, threat to dignified human existence itself. So with that, I conclude my introductory remarks. There are two things. One is to defend the victims of Manipur violence and stand by them to ensure justice. But also, very importantly, how are we going to create a meta-narrative and the needed mechanisms and resources to create a global coalition to confront RSS fascism as a threat to humanity, hate as a threat to humanity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Father Jegath Gaspar. Father Jegath Gaspar has been in public service for last more than 30 years, and he has been practicing the message of no hatred. And I know him since '93, the first day I met him. So he has been practicing spreading love and saying no to hatred. Father, thank you so much. So now we have another priest, Father Joshua Lecter. He joined us from California. So I request him because he has to prepare himself for the Mass tomorrow. So we thought of inviting him first. Father.
Thank you. My name is Father Joshua Lichter. I'm an Anglican priest in Roseville, California. We're just outside of Sacramento. And I started my congregation about 14 years ago. And part of the reason I started the congregation was I had a strong desire to reach out to the marginalized and underserved in our part of California. And that desire allowed me to build a relationship with local members of the Sikh community who had fled India due to religious persecution under Modi's regime. And that's how I first became aware of everything that was happening in India and the horrific powder keg of violence that we're now seeing is erupting and exploding against religious minorities everywhere, especially in Manipur. I want to say that it's an honor to speak tonight, and I'd like to thank you all for joining us here. I just wish it was under better circumstances. Friends, Manipur is burning right now. Tribal Christians are being massacred, and this is happening with state complicity going all the way up to the top with Modi. This is part of the Modi regime's bigger plan to eliminate religious minorities in India. And the Manipur massacre fits completely with the agenda that the RSS has put forth and implemented. We need to make no mistake, and the leaders of the world and everyone who hears us needs to be aware This is a religious pogrom happening right now. It's the worst anti-Christian violence in modern Indian history. And I find it disgraceful and abhorrent that the United States government is turning a blind eye to Modi's atrocities right now. I am a privileged American Christian clergyman, and I have to ask myself in this moment, how should the American church respond to this? And I would say a few things. Obviously, we need to pray for justice in India, but just like faith without works is dead, our prayers without action can likewise be dead. It's always been part of the Christian experience to experience persecution and to strive to not respond in hatred against those who persecute us, but with prayer and with love to demonstrate Christ towards them. But we're in a season right now where we also need to take action as Christians and be a voice for those who do not have a voice. We need to be a voice for those who are being silenced. As the prophet Isaiah told the people of God in Isaiah 1:17, we need to learn to do right, to seek justice, to defend the oppressed, to take up the cause of the fatherless, and to plead the case of the widow. Right now, we need to seek justice in India. People are being oppressed. We need to defend them. Tonight in Manipur, many people, many Christians are fatherless. We need to take up their cause. The RSS has made many a woman a widow. We need to plead their case. We need to do more than just pray. We must speak up for those who are oppressed right now. Now, why is the American church so ignorant or apathetic about this? Right now, India is one of the most, if not the most dangerous countries in the world in which to be a Christian. I ask myself over and over again, doesn't the American church care? Well, I think that they would care if they knew, but they will never know, friends, unless someone tells them. I know I'll do my share. I'm just one small voice. Every single one of us needs to speak up, and we need to do it together in unison as one. We need to put aside any kind of theological or cultural or social or political differences. I say this especially to my Indian American Christian brothers and sisters. Set aside your differences and speak as one. Let the rest of the church and the rest of the world know what is happening right now. The message that we believe about the life, death, and resurrection of our Lord Jesus Christ is a message that transcends denominational and cultural boundaries. The Apostle Paul said that in Christ, there's no Jew or Gentile, there's no male or female, there's no slave or free, but all are one in Jesus. We need to work together as one and raise a united front against the atrocious behaviors that Modi is allowing to happen. We have great freedoms here in America. We need to take advantage of that. Let's step outside of our comfortable church settings together and speak out in the public sphere. People will listen to us, but they're only going to listen if we go where they can hear us. We need to do that. We need to utilize social media. We can post and promote information in this day and age that can go global almost instantly. We need to share the stories of the oppressed and the persecuted. And we also need to encourage others to speak up and share that information as well. At the same time, we need to let our brothers and sisters know, those who are being persecuted and oppressed and made fatherless, we need to let them know that they do not suffer in silence. We know their pain, we feel their pain, and we will not let their voices be silenced. Let us keep them in prayer, but let us also continually speak up on their behalf. And one final thing. I think it's important we let our elected officials know what is going on right now, but we cannot count on them as our sole source of support. I believe that the real key to change is to educate the rest of the American church. Most American Christians, they have this false notion that India is this peaceful nation that's led by a cadre of Gandhis and gurus, and they have no idea the atrocities that Modi has been facilitating. But we have the ability to change that. It was the Christian population in America that eventually brought about change during the civil rights movement in the 1960s. Prior to that, the church had been complicit in racist practices and systems. But it was appeal to their Christian beliefs and values that changed that and ended up changing our culture. Right now, we need to educate our fellow American Christians. We need to immerse them in the story of our suffering brothers and sisters. We need to build empathy and show them the need for justice. We need to remind them of the words of the prophet Isaiah in chapter 58, verse 10. If you spend yourselves in behalf of the hungry and satisfy the needs of the oppressed, then your light will rise in the darkness, and your night will become like noonday. Brothers and sisters, let us educate the American church so that her light can shine so brightly it will bring about change across the sea in India. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Father Joshua. Prayer is the best weapon. So beyond prayer, now there is a need to educate the American church what is happening to the Christians in India, what is happening to the minorities in India. So thank you so much. And we see that involvement of American church begins with you, and you are here. We'll be able to get more clergy, more religious, more other allied religious association organizations together to support this cause. Thank you so much for taking time and come and talk to us, Father Joshua.
Thank you. I'm glad to have been here.
Thank you, Father. I also want to thank Pieter for inviting Father, and also Pieter giving the idea we need to involve non-Desi churches. We need to involve non-Desi churches was a message from Pieter. Pieter, thank you so much for that. So now we are going to have Mr. George Abraham. Mr. George Abraham, he's a former Chief Technical Officer of United Nations. Now he's a current Vice Chairman of Indian Overseas Congress. So we also need to see politically, we need to have a change in India. Let us hear from George Abraham. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Austin. I truly appreciate the opportunity to speak here, and thank you very much for your kind invitation. When I look at the screen here, I see Mr. Rajiraj Gopal and Mr. John Prabhudas, and we, all three of us, have something in common, that we traveled to Gujarat after the 2002 riots and visited the camps and created reports, and definitely came together conveying a message, especially from NRIs, that we have to live in peace. We have to bring harmony and justice to the communities. And I do not know how far we have succeeded in our mission when I look at things, especially what is happening in Manipur right now. It looks like history is repeating itself. In 1998, the trouble started in Gujarat from Danks district. That is where when Modi came to power, that's the first place the attack started taking place against the Christians. Then later on, of course, it spread to the communities, in the Muslim communities. In 2002, ended up in a huge riot where thousands of people got killed and crores of rupees of properties and other things destroyed. And then 2008 in Kandamal, the Christians were attacked. There again, priests were murdered, nuns were raped, churches were burned, and so many houses were, of course, also burned, and thousands of people were made homeless. Then I have gone also to Muzaffarnagar. The same thing happened there. Thousands of people were made homeless, and so many people got killed. And right now, it is happening here in Manipur. So it looks like there is a pattern here. It looks like it's coming from some kind of a playbook. Here, what Narendra Modi has achieved in Gujarat, if you look at it, maybe that's where they are really taking this playbook from. They have first attacked the Christians, they have attacked the Muslims, they have made them powerless, and they have made them marginalized. Then he has made the opposition parties almost powerless, and they did all the horse trading, or whatever they have done in the political space to reduce the minority into really almost nothing there. Then they really made the media silent over there. There are hundreds of cases which were brought against the media personnel, especially on seditions and so forth, and really made that. Eventually, what they have done is in Gujarat is really nothing but an authoritarian type of a rule. They have accomplished silencing people, marginalizing communities, and taking control of the total power. Maybe that's what the playbook they think right now they can implement across India. So that's what I think they've been trying from my point of view. But anyway, what we have seen is really nothing but atrocious what is taking place in Manipur now. People are really suffering. And more than that, the American government and the Christian churches in America, they both are silent. They seem to be, today, we had a large gathering in front of the UN. Of course, about 500 or more people came together. That's primarily from the Christian community here, but we also had others. But what I have noticed is that in America also, we have Gaudy media. There are not a single Indian ethnic channels were there. There's no mainstream media was there. There hardly any political leaders came around. It looks like the Indian Christian community in US is kind of invisible. Although, if you really look at the demography of the Indian community, only 50% of the Christian Indian community is Hindus. The rest are minorities. Out of the Hindu community also, I think the majority of them, they're secular-minded, they're fair-minded, they appreciate democracy and freedom. Yet, a small percentage of the people, it looks like they are the ones who are really being vocal, influential in the public space, of course, affecting policies of the government. So this is where I think when we talk about being active in the United States, where we'll have to make a difference, we have to focus on becoming a stronger voice. I know there are a number of civil society groups are working in Washington, but yet Biden administration did not find it very difficult to roll out a red carpet welcome for Modi. And they, until now, not a single senator or a congressman have a word to speak about Manipur in the halls of Congress. So that is where we are today. I think the Sangha Parivar organizations, when I look at it, they're replicated here, right here in the US. And they seem to be very active, promoting Modi policies, justifying Modi policies, of course, helping this authoritarian streak or to an extent fascist streak to continue in India. I think it is about time that we come together, not simply singing to the choir most of the time, but rather trying to reach out to these American churches, American political leaders, and try to really make a difference. One of the things I can tell you, when we had this gathering, many people were afraid to come and join the gathering. You know why? Because of the OCI card. There is a tremendous fear among people that if you speak out, you will be penalized. So it has become an Achilles heel for all the NRI population. And that means for the Modi government, that has become a trump card. So they can use against NRIs so that they will all fall in line and continue to at least their silence. So I think it is time that we come together and take a look at what we could do outside the box. I know we've been doing this type of meetings and a lot of the type of religious freedom gatherings in Washington and all that. Nothing really has borne fruits until now. It looks like we may have to look at additional ways in which we can influence policies and events in the coming days. Here, once again, my heartfelt sympathies to the victims of Manipur. I think we should not really forget what is happening in Manipur when the news kind of goes out of the front pages, but rather we will continue to have an action group. We should continue to deal with this issue until fairness, until justice is achieved. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. George Abraham. Before we go to the next speaker, so I invite everyone here on the Zoom and watching, we take 30 seconds in silence and remember more than 150 innocent lives lost in Manipur and more than 170 villages burned, more than 300 churches burned, more than 60,000 people fled and they're homeless. Let us take 30 seconds and remember them. Thank you. So next, I'd like to invite the co-founder of Fiakana. The Christians, when they left India, they settled in many parts of US. Wherever they settled, they started forming communities. They started forming associations. So these associations across 50 states of America. So a federation which unite all these associations. So that is Fiakana, Federation of Indian American Christian Organization of North America. Today, they led the prayer vigil in front of United Nations. So I had an opportunity to talk to Mr. John Prabhudas a few days back, and we had a chat, and it was an online interview program. He talked about history. So today, thank you, Mr. John Prabhudas, and we'd like to address our participants.
Thank you, Austin, for inviting us and putting together this program. Thank you for the introduction. Just quickly, there are more than 40 different organizations, including George Abraham, who is on this call, are the co-founders of the Federation of Indian American Christian Organizations. Currently, I'm holding the position of the chairman of the board of the national body. That's the officially the title that I hold, representing the Indian American Christian community. Like you mentioned, also like after in Dong's district in 1998, this group of people, including the Indian American Catholic Association and others in Washington, D.C. area, came together to create this umbrella body of Indian American Christian organizations in the year 2000. So it is about 23 years old. We have had about 6 or 7 different presidents. Currently, our president, Koshi George, he is based in New York. He put his efforts to bring together a number of churches and Hindu, Sikh, Muslim organizations together to have this rally this morning. I congratulate them for a successful event earlier today. As George Abraham mentioned, I had the opportunity to visit Godhra soon after the riots in Gujarat when Mr. Modi was the chief minister there. The stories that we heard, the incidents that we saw, is identical to what we see today in Manipur. The difference is, though, when it was happening in Gujarat, the newspapers and news media was at large, to a large extent, were able to report on it immediately. But in Manipur, because of the internet shutdown, they were not able to have. We were not able to have information for quite a few weeks in the beginning, in the month of May. But soon after that, we were able to reach out to the North American Manipur Tribal Association, and learned a lot of things that were happening on the ground. We were able to put together a list of churches that were burned. And here is the disconnect that we were having. So the government kept saying it's an ethnic violence for land rights, and all the arguments that we saw in the press and the media was only talking about how the non-tribal communities in Manipur are unable to use our own the 90% of the land. So we all know the history behind it, the arguments behind it. So I don't want to go into detail. But then something was not adding up. Now, if the problem is between the Meitei, largely Hindu community, and Kukis, who are a conglomerate, are a group of different tribes who happen to be predominantly Christian, then who's burning the churches in Imphal Valley? That question was not answered. And I believe a conversation with NAMTA officials, that it became a shock to every one of us to know at that day, I think 247 churches that we had counted that belonged to the Meitei community in Imphal Valley that was burned. Then who are the people who are burning those churches? Had to be answered. That was a question that needed to be answered. And now we know how it happened. In spite of trying to brand the Kukis as illegal narco terrorists, the picture has become clear now that the government headed by Mr. Modi and Amit Shah has provided arms, sophisticated arms, the high-arching powered grenades, shells to the Meitei militant groups to attack villages in the high altitudes from the ground. So it has become, those arms have been captured by people who are defending their villages in the hill districts, and they are using it back. So it's a bloody situation that we need to be very concerned about. Let's see, there are some efforts in Washington. So we have had several meetings with officials and victims, at least 4 different meetings. And one of the meetings we had are the highest levels in the State Department to discuss this and express our concerns, our findings. But then the question is whether there can be peace. Can there be a peace in Manipur? And there are people in Washington who are trying to say, forget what happened. We need to build confidence. Now, here is my answer for it. Without justice for the victims, it is very difficult to have a lasting peace. And for that, we need to, I'm open to willing to host Federation of Indian American Christian Organizations. is willing to host both sides, not only both sides, all parties involved, including the militant groups in Washington, to at least look at what could commonly agreed upon. But there's still reluctance. There's a hurt feeling still that is keeping that from happening. We will be trying to achieve that goal in the next week or two. The idea of India is questioned. What happened in Manipur shows that the idea of union, where all different linguistic, religious, ethnic groups have come together to form this union, that idea is being questioned, it's undermined. Now, I like Mr. P.T. Tyagarajan, the former finance minister of Tamil Nadu, when he was asked about whether this union can stay together given all the challenges, he said something very, very interesting. He said, look, I don't want to talk about the longevity of the union of India, but the union surviving for the past 75 years as one entity is a miracle. Do not push, do not test that miracle. So if we continue to see what happened in Manipur, what happened in Gujarat and other parts of the country, it is going to be difficult. We have to see how reasonable people could accept a policy in Delhi that treats people in different parts of the country this way. I mean, the question about their illegal immigrants, all the Kukis are illegal immigrants. They're saying that 1901 there was only 1%, and now it's 16%. How did that come? All of them are illegal. That argument doesn't hold water. In 1951, even though you had 14%, there's only 2% increase in the Kuki population. After the troubles in Myanmar, a lot of these Kuki population have come to their families that are living in this side of the border. It is no different from Tamils who have been, when the violence broke out in Sri Lanka, when the Tamils came to the mainland, Tamil Nadu, they were received as refugees. The fault line here is that the government of India, under Mr. Modi, is refusing to accept these refugees as refugees. Rather, they want to call them as illegal immigrants and create this tension, created this problem. If the migrants coming from Myanmar, because of the instability there, happen to be anybody other than Christians, would they have accepted, would they have labeled them as illegal immigrants? Is a question that we need to ask ourselves. If they were Hindus or Buddhists, would the government of India treat them the same way they have been treating for the 2-3 years lately? So I want to conclude I want to conclude my remarks by saying this one. This is no more a problem that's happening in the other side of the globe for some other people. That doesn't impact us. This is no more. We cannot just say, no, it is your problem. In America, it is a civil unrest in that part of the world, which is what I think is happening in Manipur, with the police confronting the army, and the arms are given to, very sophisticated arms are given to the Meitei militants attacking the Kuki villages. It is a civil war. It is not just recognized as such yet. Now, if this civil war spreads to other states in the Northeast India, it could quickly engulf the whole region. And that is not a good news for the United States' interest in that region. So America has a stake in what happens in that part of the world, in particularly what's happening in Manipur, unless we are able to pay attention to this problem and find a solution with justice, which is acceptable to all sides in this conflict, I think American interest could be impacted. America could be easily looking at a bleak scenario if Quad and all those things that need to be realistic for American interest in that region. We simply just cannot say in Washington that this is a problem there. Civil society in India will take care of it. All those things are wishful thinking. This will not lead us to any fruitful, productive future. So I wish that we will be able to bring these parties together and have a meaningful dialogue and issue a statement and get the justice for the people. I mean, looking at hundreds of bodies still are that the loved ones, the bodies of the loved ones could not be buried and could not have a closure. It's a very heartbreaking thing. I'm sure Niang and others will talk about it, but I would like to say that our offices in Washington is open as much as possible to help in the situation, to bring about an understanding between all warring groups. And thank you again, Austin, for putting it together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. John Prabhudas. As you said, we cannot just close our eyes and say, let it pass by. No, it's a time. We need to act. Thank you so much for joining this conference. And thank you so much for your support. So we are looking forward to work with your federation. Few months back, maybe a year back, a viral video of an American talking about communalism, a video of American talking about fascism in India. And that video was very viral and everybody was sharing. I was thinking, who is this person? We need to find out. Thank you, Vijay Lakshmi, Nada, for connecting Pieter Friedrich. I learned Friedrich is a German name. Pieter has been very vocal. And for the last 10 days, 9 days, he has been fasting and he has inspired hundreds and thousands back in India. And people call him American Gandhi. People call him hero. And there were some hunger fast event. We got that privilege of live streaming. So there we saw banners with his photograph there. And Indians seeing an American as a model fighting against this communalism. Pieter, your fight is a beginning to an end of communalism back in that subcontinent. Let us welcome Pieter.
Thank you so much, Austin, and for the invitation. I would say that I'm glad to be here, but I don't feel like that sentiment fits the circumstances, but I'm glad that this event is taking place in light of what's happening. This month marks 15 years since a massacre of Christians broke out in Kandhamal, Odisha, India. The 2008 Odisha pogrom was the worst anti-Christian violence to ever touch the shores of the Republic of India. Tens of thousands were made refugees within their own country. Hundreds of churches and thousands of homes were destroyed, and perhaps 100 or more people were brutally murdered. Sexual violence was a key element of that pogrom. One of the survivors was Sister Mina, a Catholic nun who worked to uplift local tribal groups. During the massacre, she hid away in a house along with a priest, but was discovered by a mob who seized her, attempted, unsuccessfully, thank God, to burn the priest alive, and then gang raped her. Then Sister Mina's attackers paraded her half naked through town in full view of the police, who stood there doing nothing. The 2008 Odisha pogrom was the worst anti-Christian violence in modern history, up until 3 months ago. At the beginning of May of this year, coordinated attacks were launched against the Christian Kuki Zomi tribal people in Manipur, and the violence is still ongoing. Only now is news about some of the grossest atrocities that have been committed beginning to emerge. Because the regime in Delhi, which is headed by the Hindu nationalist BJP's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and whose strings are pulled by the Nazi-inspired RSS paramilitary, refuses to stop the slaughter, the fog of war still hangs over Manipur, so we do not yet know the final toll taken by the violence. Yet what we do know for sure is that the 2008 Odisha pogrom is no longer the worst anti-Christian violence to strike modern India. Sexual violence, like in Odisha, is a key element of the ongoing ethnic cleansing in Manipur. We've all now heard of the viral video of two Kuki Zomi Christian women who were paraded naked and sexually assaulted on camera by a Hindu nationalist mob. That incident mirrors the suffering of Sister Meena in 2008 in Odisha. The women in Manipur were hauled off into the fields, and at least one of them was gang raped. And the attackers also reportedly murdered her brother as he tried to protect his sister. Just like with Sister Meena in 2008, the police in this incident in Manipur played a role in the attack on these Kuki Zomi women. The difference between then and now is that then the police played a mostly passive role, but now their role was and is an active role. According to the women survivors, the police were there with the mob which was attacking our village. The police picked us up from near home and took us a little way away from the village and left us on the road with the mob. We were given to them by police. The police in Manipur are in the hands of the RSS BJP. The attackers in Manipur belong to the RSS BJP. The government in Manipur is an RSS BJP government. The government in Delhi is an RSS BJP government. The reason that the regime in Delhi refuses to stop the slaughter in Manipur is because the RSS BJP ideologically supports the extermination of Indian Christians. This viral video is what shocked the world, broke the silence of the Indian media to some extent, and even got Modi a few weeks back to pledge to go after the guilty. But this viral video wasn't enough to get Modi to condemn the ongoing violence against other people. It wasn't enough to get Modi to call for peace throughout all of Manipur. And it wasn't enough to get Modi to visit Manipur and stand in solidarity with the Kuki Zomi Christians who are being massacred right now. This viral video also was not the only incident of sexual violence in the ongoing ethnic cleansing in Manipur. The attack in that video happened on the second or the third day of violence over 3 months ago. Just a couple of weeks ago, it emerged that an 18-year-old Kuki Zomi woman was picked up and gang raped on the 12th day of violence. That is over 2 months ago, on May 15th, 2.5 months ago. And her story is just now surfacing. How many more stories have not yet been told? We do not yet know the final toll of the violence. And yet, over 2 months ago, in mid-May, reports were that 400 churches, maybe 500, had been burned down, and 70, maybe 100 Christians killed. 2 months ago, that was where the situation stood, and violence is still unabated today. In early June, some reports put the death toll at 150 or more. In mid-June, some reports had it at 200 or more dead. And there are currently perhaps 60,000 people, maybe more, who are displaced from their homes due to the ongoing violence. What is going on in Manipur, however, is not the only recent large-scale attack on Indian Christians. Just a little bit over 6 months ago, over the Christmas 2022 season, Christians in the central Indian state of Chhattisgarh were under attack. Over several weeks, Hindu nationalist mobs chased thousands of tribal Christians. And again, tribal Christians always seem to be the victims, from Odisha to Manipur to Chhattisgarh. Hindu nationalist mobs in Chhattisgarh last year chased thousands of tribal Christians out of their villages, demolishing their homes and churches, attempting to force many of them to recant their faith in Christ. These recent large-scale attacks, like in Chhattisgarh, like in Manipur, are merely the most attention-grabbing examples of the swelling tide of anti-Christian violence in India today. Whichever Indian Christian reporting organization we look to, the numbers do differ slightly, but the same general pattern holds. Every single year since the Modi regime took power in 2014, the reported incidents of violence against Christians have increased over the previous year. 2022 was particularly atrocious, with the 2023 report by the Federation of Indian American Christian Organizations of North America reporting 1,200 cases of verified violence against Christians in India, a 157% increase from the previous year. As Fiacona noted, however, this really probably only represents a tiny fraction of the actual number of anti-Christian violent incidents occurring. According to them, it's likely about 30% of the actual incidents. A large number of the routine incidents of violence look like this. Christians gather for Sunday worship, as they will be doing today, as it is daytime over in India. A mob, oftentimes armed and oftentimes accompanied by the police, assembles outside. They invade the sanctuary during services. They beat up the clergy and the congregation. They smash the premises. They drag the people outside. And if the police are not already present, then the mob hauls the clergy and the congregants down to the police station. They hand them over to the police. They accuse them of engaging in illegal conversion simply for assembling for Sunday worship. And the police file charges against the victims instead of the perpetrators. Meanwhile, in Manipur, the mass violence is still ongoing, and we are only now just hearing some of the stories of survivors of attacks that happened months ago. How many stories have not yet been told? In the middle of June, for instance, we finally heard the story of a June 4th attack on a Kuki Zomi family from a survivor who told us about how his mother and his 8-year-old son were seized and burned alive. Then we heard the story and saw the picture of the Kuki Zomi man who was beheaded and his head displayed on a fence. And then, how many more women were gang raped? How many more people were burned alive? How many more people were beheaded? How many women in Manipur are being gang raped right now? And how many people in Manipur are being burned alive right now? And how many people in Manipur are being beheaded right now? How many more people have to tell their stories of survival of the worst horror imaginable in Manipur before the Modi regime finally steps in and stops the slaughter? How long before the unchecked violence in Manipur spills over the state's borders into other areas of the country? How long before the world and our own government here in America wakes up to the reality that religious freedom has slipped so far away in India that it is no longer safe to be a Christian in that country? How long before our American government realizes that the Modi regime, which it has chosen to embrace with the most intimate embrace possible, has made being a Christian in India a life-threatening choice? The Modi regime is silent on Manipur, but so too is our Biden administration here in America. Yet we will not and cannot and should not be silent. We will, we must, we can stand up and speak out and scream on behalf of those who have already been slaughtered as their blood cries out from the ground for justice, and on behalf of the survivors of the Manipur horror. I will stand, my conscience demands that I stand, with Kuki Zomi women, and indeed all of the Christians who are under siege in Manipur today, and also with every religious minority all across India who is facing violence under the Modi regime today. You must also stand with them as well if your conscience calls you to do so, as it must be calling you. Will you please stand with them? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Peter. As always, that was so emotional and powerful. Thank you so much for standing up. Thank you so much for supporting. Thank you for everything you've done.
Thank you also.
We, as everyone here, present here, everyone watching this and who will watch in the future, we thank you for the loud voice, the loud noise you made by your hunger fast. Your hunger fast for 9 days of inspired. Maybe the representative would have ignored. I mean, he did engage, but it has inspired many. Thank you so much, Peter. I also want to thank Vijayalakshmi Nadar for connecting our Peter. During the time when we had this viral video of Peter, we had an Indian being very vocal about communalism. That video was very, very viral. And one of our retired IAS officer, he sent me a message and say, how about connecting with her? And we need to have people like her. Then I did some research, then I connected with her. A very loud, vocal voice against corruption and communalism. Vijayalakshmi Nadar.
Thank you very much, Wilson, for that very, very generous introduction. Yes, I introduced you to Peter, but then Peter introduced me to civil activism here as well. I never thought I would be raising a voice. But part of the reason why I started was I saw that Peter, as a white man, was being attacked in India for being an outside voice, a foreign influence on what's happening in India. And I thought, okay, I need to jump in now because I'm a Hindu, I'm a woman, and I'm also, an Indian. So there is no way you can, on what grounds would you attack me? And so this is how my activism started, and I'm glad to be one of the voices, but it saddens me to see that there are not many Hindu voices speaking even in the US. Despite the fact that this is a safe country to be in, from here you can easily voice your concern, but I'm not seeing many concerns. Why is it that despite, if there is one element which is very, very common to everything that is wrong in the country today, it is Narendra Modi. Now, the single most common denomination in the persecution of Dalits, Muslims, Christians, women, farmers struggle, students struggle, student of government employees working in railways, various public sectors, government doctors, nurses, teachers. And in the genocide of states like Delhi, Assam, West Bengal, now Manipur and Haryana, we have not even stopped speaking about Manipur yet, and the action has already shifted to Haryana. The horror is simply spreading from state to state. Therefore, none of these issues can be viewed in isolation. Modi's dirty, violent politics is changing politics even in the US. If we remember right, during the Trump era, at least the women's squad here were very vocal. Even if whether it was the Vice President Kamala Harris, Pramila Jayapal, Alexandria Cortex, or Ilhan Omar, all of them were voicing their concerns. And suddenly all those voices have become either very silent or very muted. This is not something which we expected from the Biden administration. My thought as a journalist was that maybe the atrocities against Dalits and Muslims was not enough to wake up the progressive world. I thought that attack on Christians would wake them up finally. And the Indian government thought so too. And that is why the Hindutva attacks, Pieter mentioned about tribal Christians being attacked first. They thought that tribal Christians do not have a voice. The media will never reach them. Even during the time of the internet, they thought, they could hurt a few churches here and there, hurt a few Christians here and there, and nobody will know about it. And nobody would have known even about the Manipur horror, the way the women were raped under the cover of darkness, under the cover of an internet shutdown. This is exactly what happened in Kashmir. As a journalist and as a Hindu and as a person representing the majority community, it bothers me that we are all fighting isolated battles here. Christians are fighting their fights, Sikhs are fighting their fight, the Dalits are fighting their fight, and Muslims are fighting their separate fight. And at the heart of all this is the Hindutva terror, which continues to spread. It bothers me that in any of these protests, only those communities end up fighting themselves. I stepped in because I did not want Pieter to be attacked. I step in because Muslims, I don't want them to be the only ones fighting for themselves. I believe as a person representing the majority community in India, I need to express myself too. And I wish 84% of the Indians who are Hindus in India and abroad speak up, because this is one fire which will be there at their doorsteps soon. Even in Uttar Pradesh, the Brahmins and the Thakurs are already fighting among themselves. After they have finished their atrocities on Muslims, on Christians and Dalits, whom do they go after next? The different communities of the Hindus. So this fight is not just about one particular sect. This is one general view I wanted to give. We as Americans here live, as NRIs living in the US, we also need to be aware of the way Hindutva is spreading on foreign soil. And I believe the more voice that we raise from abroad, it's sort of a comfort factor for those suffering in India who are not able to speak vocally as much as we can. And I want this struggle to spread so that more and more voices get active. The Narendra Modi government thinks just that by isolating the minorities, they can continue to be in power for the next 50, 100 years. And this is something which we have to work in right earnest to foil, because one more term of Narendra Modi would be disastrous for the country. And that is part of the reason why I do not want to see these as isolated fights, but as just one part of the collective. We need to come together as a collective. I think I should stop here now because we have so many more speakers and I'm myself very keen to hear them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vijayalakshmi. And we need your continuous journalistic service to voice against communalism and corruption. Thank you so much for joining. We have like around 10 speakers today. Among the 10 speakers, only one who has the direct experience from Manipur. She is the daughter of the soil. And she shared her story during Oakland protests. I joined via Zoom, and it brought tears. Let us welcome Niang, who is one of the vice president of NANTA.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you so much. Every one of you have done a lot of research. For example, John knows more about Manipur problem than we do. And I know that Pieter has listed the atrocities, so I don't want to go through those again, but I want to thank you for the due diligence you did to come and give this speech, because it shows your passion in standing up for our people. And I also want to echo what other speakers have said, that when you talk for us here, our people know about it and they get encouraged. And I think that's really important. And I want to thank the organizers for the rally in UN. I know there were very small participation from NAMTA, but the rally had a huge turnout, and that is very encouraging for our people. So to start with, my name is Niang Hangzhou, and I am a Vice President of Communication for NAMTA. NAMTA is North American Manipur Tribal Association, and it is an organization that came into being from the pain and anguish of this war. I call this a war because my mom called it a war. She is 86 years old, and when I finally got to talk to her on the 7th in May, when she was safely evacuated to Delhi, she said, "This is the second time I had to flee from a war. The first one was in 1942, when Manipur Impal was bombed by the Japanese, and the second was on 3rd May 2023. So when the war broke out, the attack broke out, in one night, 45 churches were burned, which means 45 villages or 45 communities in Impal Valley was attacked. So it was coordinated, it was targeted, and it was well organized and pre-planned, because the people who attacked were not one or two, it was hundreds. So you cannot organize. If it's not organized, mobs go wild. They were rabid, they were angry. So the way they executed with precision shows that there was clear planning. And overnight, 16,000 people were displaced overnight. And there was no place for them to go. They ended up in army, I wouldn't say, we call it camps, but they're not actually camps. For example, my family and others ended up in a space that was their recreational hall. You know, the army, whatever the station had, a huge hall, and they had like 4,000 people there. And over the days, more and more people came, and eventually there was an exchange of like prisoners of war. There was exchange of evacuees from the hills to the valley, and from the valley to the hill, escorted by army convoys. So this is, for people, it sounds like ethnic cleansing. They said it's too strong, but it is not even. Ethnic cleansing is not strong enough to describe what happened. And because of the internet ban, a lot of people didn't know, but we were talking to our families on the phone. Even though there was no internet, there was still cell service. So we got ground report. So today, as it stands, today is the 95th day of the war. 95 days, nonstop. Even yesterday, this morning, which is their night, we heard that the villages in Lamka, the peripheral villages that adjoins the Meitei villages, were attacked. And we had about 10 people injured and 1 dead. And there was a report of 3 Meiteis dead. So this is a war, let's not forget that. The current situation is the Kuki Zomis are now in the hill areas with no access to Impal, and all the Meiteis who ever lived in the Kuki Zomi areas and the ones in the peripheral villages have gone to Impal area. So even the villages that were not impacted originally in the first week of May, they have taken their women and their children and gone to Impal and left the men behind. Similarly for our people, the adjoining villages, they're just young men. And these are young men as young as 18 who have kept their life on hold to defend against incessant, relentless attack by the state forces and the militant groups. And after mid-June, we noticed that not only were the militant groups involved, but the women started coming out in force. in huge numbers. They would block the army. So if if army got intelligence about attack happening in the villages towards the Kuki Zomi, the Métis women would come and block them, so they cannot go and stop or be a buffer. So the women actively obstruct. So this is beyond state forces. It's beyond militant group. They have civilian women participating. The situation today is extremely dire. Our hill areas where our Kuki Zomi live don't have the infrastructure or the advanced facilities for surgery or for treatment, and they cannot get anything from the valley. Even if you send aid to them today, it's going to be distributed along ethnic lines. And if something has to go to our people in Lamka, it has to go to Mizoram, which is a different state, or it has to come through Nagaland to go to the Kangpokpi area, which is another Kuki Zomi area. So everything is distributed along ethnic lines. And because this is state-sponsored, many of the speakers have talked about that. If there's any aid coming from the central government, it'll go to Biren Singh and it'll go to the Impal people, and that's it. We're not getting anything. The Impal Valley, the schools and universities are open despite the war. That's because the war is towards the peripheral areas. They have started colleges. They have 2 medical colleges. They have NIIT. They've started all that. But the students, the Kuki Zomi students, they are limbo. They're stuck. They cannot access or avail of this education. Meanwhile, in Lamka, for example, there are 104 relief camps. And where do they keep them? They are housed, the displaced are housed in schools and colleges. So there's no place of learning. And because even if they wanted to use another facility for learning, it is not safe for them to be out, for the kids, for the children. And the young college-going students, the young men, as I mentioned before, they've taken up arms to defend because the attack is not stopping. So the situation is very dire. We need to have this stop. 95 days is too much suffering. At some point, they will run out of food, even if there's donors like everybody here or outside. They're all private donors and private agencies and organizations. Already, because of the insistent, relentless attack from the Métis, our people are running out of medicine. And we don't have the advanced facilities. If somebody is severely injured, they either die or they have to be airlifted, which is very expensive because there's no advanced medical facilities. And basic supplies, medicines are also running out. So what I want to stress is that this has to stop. And we've talked about educating the churches. We've talked about talking to the senators and representatives and bringing this to motion, which will happen if we're successful after September. But we need to have this stop now. So we need collective voices. We need to raise this condemnation from all around the world so loud that it changes the mind of the people. And if it changes the ordinary Americans, ordinary Indians, then the leaders will take notice. So we need to do that. We need campaigns of awareness. We need to send the message of our suffering in every format possible. Just like our volunteers are fighting today at the peripheral villages, we call that the front line. We have our digital front line, and I need everybody here to partner with us to send this message. The rally this morning, or the prayer vigil this morning in UN was one such thing. We need that. We need everyone to share that. When we see this, somebody else who has not heard of it will see it and they'll question. So I request your solidarity in sending out this message. And at the same time, I would like to work with anybody who can get us hold of any representatives. We are trying that on our own as well, because we need to talk to our lawmakers, our representatives and senators. We need to continue to do that. And anybody with contacts, please do that. And I love the idea of talking to the American churches so that they can be educated. I think a lot of times it's because they don't know. We are a very small population, not even 1 million strong. Even in India, we're not very well known. Most people wouldn't take me for an Indian. They think I'm Filipino or something else, you know. And so people don't know we exist. And if we don't do anything about it, they can easily annihilate us. And we'll be, you know, poof, we'll be gone in another month. The fact that we're still standing 95 days later, the fact that we're still alive and fighting is divine intervention. It is, I would say, the result of the prayers of everybody, even our own people. When we have nothing else left, what we do is pray. I look at this as a David and Goliath war. So we have, just like David had 5 stones, we have our 5 stones. The first one is unity. And I need the unity of the global Christians and well-wishers, the Hindus who feel that human rights has to be maintained to protect the name and image of India, the Muslims, the Dalit, everyone who has suffered. Before I go on, I have to say this. I have seen tremendous support and outpouring from the people who have suffered. We have people who have been, the people who reached out are the ones who faced this before. And I'm ashamed to say that until this happened to me, I was not, I was not aware, or I didn't think about voicing for them. But I realized that when we were in trouble and when we are in trouble, the ones who reach out are the ones who had suffered before. The empathy, the pain that they had felt, they shared with us. And I realized that if we unite together, everybody, if we unite together with this common cause, we can still do this. So thank you so much, Austin, for arranging this. Thank you for all the panels and the panelists. And John, thank you so much, because you've been a source of strength for us. And many of you, Sean, Pieter, your fast, that was amazing, but you would sacrifice for us. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nyang. As individuals and the association and organization we are affiliated to, we will stand by you. We will support the people of Manipur. We will be with you. Thank you. Often we have confusion. Hindu versus Hindutva. We are not against all Hindus. We have Hindu friends who are against Hindutva. There are huge hundreds, thousands, and millions of friends. But at times, our friends who are Hindus, when they oppose communalism, when they oppose Hindutva, they are not ready to recognize themselves as Hindus. Very boldly in America, Hindus can also fight for human rights. Hindus need to fight against Hindutva. We have co-founder of Hindus for Human Rights, Mr. Raju Rajagopal.
Thank you, Austin, for inviting me to this panel on the Manipur humanitarian crisis, and broadly also on defending Indian democracy. Let me start out with a shout out to all those, including Pieter, Sean, Kirtika, many students in Coimbatore who went on a hunger strike to draw attention to the situation in Manipur. To them, I say, you have indeed achieved your objective of educating many, many thousands of people on the dire situation in Manipur and the humanitarian crisis faced by the Kuki Zomi people. A few words first about Hindus for Human Rights. I often describe us as the new minority in India. Formed in 2019, we bring progressive Hindu voices against Hindutva, against caste, and all other forms of bigotry. Our work includes community education, writing opinion pieces, lobbying in DC and with local governments, and participating in protests and petitions. I was here in Fremont with Niang the other day, and about 100 other people participating in a protest on the Manipur situation. I do want to elaborate a little bit more, though, on what we do. Some of our recent projects are aimed at promoting cross-identity dialogue and understanding, whether it be across faith, race, caste, gender identity, and so on. We now have an experiment running in 5 college campuses where a Hindu student and a Muslim student have been paired up to organize a joint social project throughout the next year to bring awareness on the campus about interfaith relations. We also just joined a project initiated by Shabnam Hashmi called Mera Ghar Aake Dekho, which is Come See My House, asking people to invite or be invited by someone whom they seldom see socially and to share a short video of their engagements and experiences. Shabnam is hoping for thousands of such interactions to take place by August 15th. And I believe her. She has done these types of large projects before. And the idea is on this Independence Day, let us go with a positive attitude, reminding people of India's celebrated interfaith relationships, which has been with us for the last 75 years, of course, until Modi came to power. HFHR is also organizing Desh Videsh conversations across the divide, which is aimed at bringing Silicon Valley audiences, both Modi supporters and Modi opponents, in the same room with diverse views so that we can engage in a civil dialogue. Hopefully, this will be more successful than it's been so far. It takes time for this to work. Besides reaching out to the Indian American audience, we also have a unique role to play in reaching out to our fellow Hindus, which, as you can understand, is quite a challenge, given the extent of support for Modi in the community. As some of you may know, we've been actually sued by another Hindu organization in an attempt to shut us down. But that has not deterred us from our continuing effort to reach out, as we feel that bit by bit, we will start waking up the majority community from their stupor. The situation in Manipur has given us another reason to engage urgently with the Hindu community. I'm also happy today to be speaking directly to fellow Tamilians in the audience, particularly as I feel that Tamil Nadu, with its fierce adherence to secularism, has a critical role to play in reclaiming Indian democracy. Coming to Manipur, I must confess that I knew very little about Manipur until recently, but the immediacy of the need to learn more about the state came home to me yesterday as Hindus for Human Rights was hearing a first-hand account from a person who was with Harsh Mandar on the Karwani Mohabbat journey to Manipur, which was done just in recent days. Apparently, there is a report now available on the internet for those that are interested in learning more. Like people like myself, obviously many of you here know a lot more. So this may be a reference to you, so you can refer it to other people. Now, the conversation that we had yesterday was a chilling account by any measure, as he talked about how they had to go past 7 heavily armed checkposts to go from Imphal to Charchandpur, apparently set up respectively by Meitei Mothers, the Assam Rifles, the Nagas, the Central Reserve Police Force, the Indian Army, the Border Patrol, and finally by defenders of Kuki land. Now, once in the Kuki territory, he talked about how they saw many children on the verge of malnutrition with distended bellies, and about reports of shortages of baby formula, lack of medical supplies, as Niang referred to, and inability to perform even routine surgeries. He also heard of how pregnant women had to deliver their babies in the field during the conflict, and many, many other reports like that. One of his urgent appeals was the shortage of milk powder, and he has appealed to anybody that has a way of getting milk powder to the victims in the hills to follow through with corporates like Nestle's and so forth. But we are also told that sending money or relief supplies through Imphal is risky and may not reach the victims. Some of you probably know very well whether this is true or not. But I did see just now, Harsh Mandar has posted more information on how people like us who are not from Manipur, who don't know much about Manipur, how we can donate to the people in distress, especially in the hill areas. To me, what struck a deep chord in that conversation yesterday is when he said that they had to search for a driver who would not be targeted by either side. And therefore, they had decided to hire a Muslim driver, as ironically, Manipur is one of the few safe places for a Muslim, he said. Now, in answer to a question about the possibility of reconciliation between the warring communities, Namta leader Lian Gangte, who was also with us, was very pessimistic. How can there be reconciliation without first learning the truth, he said. So it reminded me of the calls for complete separation that we have heard recently from some of the Kuki leaders on the ground, which reflect a dire situation as they see it. For me personally, Prime Minister Modi's 3-month-long silence and then a reluctant response resorting to whataboutery was a painful reminder of Gujarat 2002. John and George and I were together those days, and we remember distinctly how they were practicing the idea of resorting to silence during violence, when one would expect a constitutionally elected chief minister to speak up, diverting public attention, building a case for plausible denials, and recrafting narratives often after the fact have become the modus operandi of the BJP rulers. Even now, they're probably furiously working to change the narrative on Manipur and absolve themselves of all responsibility for the mayhem and direct consequences of their misrule. But thanks to the brave people of Manipur and the international support they've been able to muster, I think Modi's plan is not going to work this time. But yet, as many of you have said, there is palpable fear in the air that the violence could spread to other parts of the Northeast, and that what's happening in Manipur and Modi's silence and dog whistles can further energize those indulging in violence in Haryana and Uttarakhand. So this is not just about Manipur. I think every time the Hindu right wing does something which they're proud of, quote unquote, in other parts of the country, it only energizes violence in other places. In the old days, people in the Northeast used to complain that they're forgotten people by the rulers of the country. It's ironic that today, the events in the Northeast, CAA, for example, in Assam, 3-4 years ago, and now the Manipur violence have the potential to greatly influence events in India. On the home front here, President Biden had often said during his campaigns that silence is complicity. Sadly, as some of you have observed, his administration is doing precisely that, while uncritically embracing Modi with much fanfare. What can we do in the diaspora to make an impact and push for peace in Manipur? This webinar is one good example of what we're doing to raise awareness. The silent vigil this morning and protests in many parts of the country are also our way of informing the American public, with the hope that someone who is in a position of authority is listening to the plight of the Kuki Zomis. What are we at HFHR doing? We will continue to participate in protests and advocacy along with our allies and NAMTA. We also plan to bring a dialogue on Manipur as part of our Desh Videsh conversations, with the hope that we can even engage possibly with some progressive leaders with the Mai Tai community. John talked earlier about the all-party meeting that Fiacona was willing to host. We, as Hindus for Human Rights, will be happy to add a Hindu voice to those conversations, as well as join any interfaith teams that may decide to visit major churches across the country as called for by Father Joshua. So our way of contributing here is to add a progressive Hindu voice to all of these initiatives. Finally, a note about the upcoming visit to India by a congressional delegation led by our local Congressman Ro Khanna. As you may know, he is a co-chair of the so-called House India Caucus. They are leaving next Wednesday to go to India, primarily to take care of their business interests and to, again, shake hands with Modi and, quote unquote, to visit celebrities in Mumbai. Nothing on their official agenda talks about meeting people from Manipur or Kashmir or meeting activists. What we are doing this week is meeting with him as an alliance, broad alliance, on Monday to insist that they make time in their delegation to meet with victims of Modi misrule. We're not sure they will take up on it, but at the very least, we will have tried, and we plan to give specific names of people to meet. And if any of you have any suggestions, please do let me know. Let me end by hoping and praying, like a lot of you, that the international community will recognize how dire the situation is in the hills of Manipur and how it could spill over to other parts of India. They must use any and all leverages they have with Modi government to urge him to act now to bring peace to Manipur before it's too late. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Raju Rajagopal. Hindus for Human Rights is an organization is a need of the hour. We need to bring all our Hindus to fight for human rights. Thank you for your inspirational speech, and thank you for taking time to join us.
I want to just confirm what he said about anything that is sent to Impal will not reach our people. I can confirm that. I mentioned it, but I want to reiterate that that's true.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nyang, for confirming. We have only one more speaker, then we'll have concluding remarks by our father, Jegath Gaspar. 2 years back, I was very impressed by some videos I saw in some WhatsApp group. A video by a person talking about politics. And when I was a small kid, doing studying 4th grade back in India. So my mom used to write speeches, and I memorized those and go for Congress meetings. Right, I memorize and I stand on the table and deliver. They take me to in a different car to different places. After that, I don't have any involvement in politics after my the childhood. But this person sent a lot of videos talking about politics, involvement in politics. Then I message him, "Oh, why don't you join us and let us do a political program?" And he said he will, but unfortunately he couldn't. But for the last 15 days, I'm so privileged to work with him. First, I salute him for all this protests and demonstration he has coordinated. And I salute him for his enthusiasm, zeal. And we get only 24 hours. Look like Sean gets 28 hours a day. The next, Sean, who is he called himself Karyakarta, but the leader of Indian Overseas Congress here, USA.
Thank you, Austin. I think it's a great privilege to talk among this audience. I kind of just started my journey with Indian Overseas Congress recently, where George Abraham was the founder. So I think it's very privileged to talk in the same podium he spoke. So I just want to speak about the real issue, what we have got. 3,254 days, 106 months, 26 days. It is equivalent to 8 years, 10 months, and 26 days. I am talking about the number of days which Modi was banned from entering America. March 18, 2005 to February 13, 2014. For 8 years, 10 months, 26 days, he was banned from entering America. Under 43rd Republican President George Bush, on March 16, 2005, the House Resolution 163 was introduced in Congress condemning Modi for his actions to incite religious persecution. 2 days after, America went so far to deny Modi a visa on the grounds of severe violations of religious freedom. In fact, I think the tribal story goes, Joe Biden also was part of that, who voted for it. So he was effectively banned from entering the country for nearly a decade. Even President Obama continued the ban, as 64 MPs urged Obama to keep the visa ban for Modi. We don't know when a journalist usually turns in his life as an activist. If his or her heart is in right place, he will become one actually. There are few activist journalists I respect here, Jegath, Vijayalakshmi, Pieter. Want to quote Aaron Sorkin's lines from a sitcom named about a journalist, The Newsroom. Now, America is not the greatest country anymore in the world. Sure, it used to be. We stood up for what was right. We fought for moral reasons. We passed laws, struck down laws for moral reasons. We waged wars on poverty, not poor people. We sacrificed. We cared about our neighbors. We put our money where our mouths were, and we never beat our chest. We built great things, made ungodly technological advances, explored the universe, cured diseases, and we cultivated the world's greatest artists and the world's greatest economy. We reached the stars, acted like men. We aspired to intelligence. We didn't belittle it. It didn't make us feel inferior. We didn't identify ourselves by who we voted for in the last election, and we didn't scare so easy. We were able to do all these things because we were informed by great men who were revered. The first step in solving any problem in recognizing there is one. America is not the greatest country in the world anymore. So I just want Ro Khanna, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, whoever have interest about India, want to take this as high time, as a request from all Indian Americans. So many people are appealing, so that they should consider all your requests. I just want to assure one thing for three people here in the audience who are from different spectrums of the America. John Prabhudas, Raju Rajagopal, George Abraham, who went to Gujarat and made these kind of bans happen. So I think all of your reports about Gujarat might have certainly helped America to take action. So I am just going to assure you that we will take it from here. Till this administration is replaced in 2024, we will not sleep. It's high time to work together. My voice is not a sole one. I speak every day to a community of 300 people. They are the Bharat Ki Awaaz. They are the voice for India. I'm assuring you, we will get this done. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sean. Political change. That's the only solution. I hear that. So thank you so much, everyone. So we had our speakers. I understand, some of you may have questions to ask. We will give an opportunity for the questions. Now, our Dr. Father Jegath Gaspar, he's going to give concluding remarks. Before that, on 29th June, we organized...
Austin, Aksan Khan from Indian, former president of Indian American Muslim Council is here. You want to invite?
Oh, sure, Sean. Thank you so much. So before Father's concluding remarks, let me get Akshan Khan. Can you spotlight him? Akshan Khan, I don't see the name.
Aksan, we are not able to see you. Can you speak or can you identify? Okay, it is saying Mohammed. So I'm here.
Yes, yeah. Akshan, could you, open your video? Okay.
All right. Hey, Sean and Austin, thank you. This is Ahsan Khan, and thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I had a very spotty internet, and I'm traveling, and the place. I just came out from an event just to say my remarks, and also to appreciate what Pieter, Sean, and everybody else have been doing regarding the Manipur violence. Especially the most important thing for me to come and speak was defending the humanity and democracy. That is what we basically stand for, even at Indian American Muslim Council. So I really want to thank each and every one of you. Austin, thank you so much for taking this one and bringing all peoples of life into this discussion. This is very, very important. And it is very time sensitive too. So I do understand that. I apologize because, I was joining and going away. I had a spotty internet, but I just try to find some location here just to speak. So please accept my apologies for that. But nevertheless, I just want to, just give my message. We did a lot of, protest, and I got a chance to even hear Sister Niang a little bit. And then I saw Raju also speaking. So, she summed it up all in terms of what is happening in Manipur. But from the Bay Area Indian American community, especially from the Muslim community, we are also deeply pained and concerned by the escalating violence in Manipur, which is resulting in the tragic loss of innocent lives and the displacement of communities across the state. We all are here on this particular channel, and we are here because we care about the people. Our heart cries for those people, and that is the reason we all have assembled here to voice our protest against the inaction of Indian government in effectively addressing this crisis and restoring peace in Manipur. One of the things which I heard from Sister Niang was like this was 95th day, if I'm not wrong. It was a spotty internet, but I thought that I heard that it was 95th day that this is continuing. The unyielding cycle of violence and senseless killings in Manipur that demands an immediate attention and action from the highest authorities. There is no reason why nobody should raise the voice and take the action. The government's failure to apprehend and prosecute the perpetrators has only perpetuated the situation, leaving communities vulnerable and in distress. I pray for all those victims, and we ask our government and especially the rulers to implore and break the silence on this matter and take all the necessary measures to restore peace in Manipur and provide essential aid to the affected communities. As Sean was saying that we need to reach out to congressmen, senators, even here in the United States, and bring the a kind of awareness to even the pastors here, reaching out to the Christian community and explaining to them the gravity of the situation there. And Sean can even testify this. Like we had a recent protest, and after the protest, we were thinking that we should have a some pastor there, and you won't believe that at the end of the protest, we found one pastor who was just passing by. He was curious about what is going on. He stood by there, and and after hearing what is happening, he prayed for all those victims. So we all are human beings first. It doesn't matter whether we belong to we are Hindus, we are Muslims, Christians, Sikhs, or Dalits. It doesn't matter. It is the humanity which every religion teaches us first. And if we are unable to maintain that, if we are unable to uphold that, then there is no use of even being a human. And that is what even Indian American Muslim Council have always stood for. We believe in peace, pluralism, and the social justice for all of them. So I request each and everyone here, and I want to thank everyone here. And this is a fight which we are fighting to get the justice for those oppressed, and we are on the right side of the game. And we hope that some actions will be taken in this regard. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. And I was really fast in what I was saying, but I guess I could able to pass the message that we all the Muslims of the Bay Area or in America nationwide, we all stand by Kuki community, and we pray for those who have lost their lives, and we expect that some actions will be taken against those perpetrators. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you so much, Ashan Khan. I was afraid. We will miss you. And even the message you said, I'm in a wedding. So I thought, okay, Hassan may not join. But we are very, very glad to have a representative from Indian American Muslim Council. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So now, before I invite Father Jegath Gaspar, on 29th of June, we organized an event where we brought former IAS Shashikant Senthil and Christopher Tilak to open our eyes. It was a virtual event. The seeds for that event was sowed by Father Jegath Gaspar. So in America, after 23rd of July, we had a lot of demonstration protests. But in America, on 29th of June, that was the first virtual event Father Jegath Gaspar has initiated. Thank you, Father. We would have just closed our eyes and passed by. But you inspired us. Thank you, Father. And Father Jegath Gaspar joining to give concluding remarks.
Thank you once again, Austin, and your team for putting this very meaningful online event. And thank you very much all the speakers, but individuals who represent God's conscience in this world. Beginning with Reverend Joshua Richter, Mr. George Abraham, and the one who just spoke, Mr. Auzan Khan, Mr. John Prabhudas, who has been campaigning for Christian rights in the United States for long, and Mr. Pieter, Vijayalakshmi Nadar, and young Angza, Mr. Raju Rajagopal, Mr. Shyam Sankaran. Your earnestness, sincerity, and commitment is a message of hope today, not only to the people of Manipur, but to everyone who cares for humanity, constitutional values, democracy, and peace. Now, if you look at the RSS modus operandi, let's go beyond. I mean, I'm not asking to go far beyond, because we know what RSS is, RSS Parivar is. Just last 12 months, you just decode what happened. There is a method. It started with Maharashtra, and then you saw the Kerala story coming in. Then we saw the high pitching of the communal tempo before and during the Karnataka elections. And then the Manipur happened. And before even we are able to control the embers of fire there, we have Haryana. And we don't know when is going to be the next one, probably so soon. We just don't know where it's going to be. And with 2024 elections coming in, and somehow desperate to grab power and convert India into a theocratic state, using democracy as the alibi, we fear for the country. We fear for humanity. In brief, we must agree, we must openly speak. What RSS has declared on this entire world, not just in India, is a political, cultural civil war. I think we have been in our kind of sleep for too long. We have been responding to isolated or specific events. We have not adequately, using the word adequately is also very, very inappropriate, because we haven't done anything much as a collective for what RSS has done, a political, cultural, civil war, a well-planned subversion of constitutional democracy in the subcontinent, and posing now a geopolitical threat, a global threat to humanity. And it's time that we recognize that and devise, articulate our responses accordingly, failing which will be to our peril. And if you think that the changes will, as all of you agreed, if the changes will come from the top, we will be fooling ourselves. In India, the state instrumentalities have been taken over, particularly the deep state. Deep state is the special brigade of the RSS Parivar now. And deep state is too powerful, and deep state has become very dangerous. Be it NIA, be it Intelligence Bureau, be it the External Affairs, the embassies all over the world, they become collaborators of the RSS Parivar. And in this scenario, and particularly geopolitics, it's not appearing to be, it's emphatically favoring the RSS now. Why even Modi, someone was banned in the United States, was welcomed there and is being celebrated there? Because of the Asia Pivot, which is a strategic policy document for which the American political executive as well as the deep state will stand by. So let's not expect anything great or spectacular to come from the top because of the China factor and the real exigency of defending Australia and Japan in the Asia Pacific. There is a compelling need for strategic planners in the Washington DC and Pentagon to take India on board. So it favors the RSS controlled government and the RSS agenda. As someone who worked closely, deeply with the Sri Lankan Tamil struggle for justice and self-determination, when the 2009 genocidal attack happened on the Tamils, or when the war was brought to a brutal end, I met a diplomat who was seriously involved in the peace process. I asked him, why did you let our people down? And he emotionlessly told me, you know, Father, in global power, dealing with global power, if you are not sitting on the high tables of power to eat, you could possibly be the menu. I repeat, if you are not sitting on the high tables of power, you could possibly be the menu. So let's admit that we are not sitting on the high tables of power. And let's awake before we really become the menu. We are already becoming the menu. It's important to understand this fact and again formulate our responses from the bottom up, following a bottom up approach, as starting with Reverend Joshua, who very, very correctly said, reach out to the local communities there, reach out to the local leaders there, reach out to the local representatives, and let's build the movement against, because RSS has declared a civil war and it is a political, cultural civil war, and a civil war has to be confronted, faced with resolve as a war, as a systematic war, as a well-planned war. Now, those who are there in that part of the world, the United States, let's understand that this civil war has a social base there. This is very, very important. And a very enduring social base for now and from now on. It will get more organized and it will get more entrenched, it will get more deeper. But let us admit and admit with conviction that there is a social base from among the Indian diaspora there, particularly our Hindu brethren. There is a strong, extensive social base which supports the RSS political, cultural, civil war. Now, how do we really address this one? Without, RSS has no shame. They have no shame because they have zero respect for democratic and constitutional values. They have no shame. And they are supported by social, religious organizations which have otherwise good Hindus. They abide by the law. They don't break the law. They don't create any open communal ruckus there. But then they go on as excellent Hindus. But they are the social base there. They operate under several legal names and organizations. Now, how do you really face this? The social base, which goes there in the United States as very law-abiding citizens otherwise, but they are the social base for the people who are waging a political, civil, cultural civil war in India on minorities and all constitutional values and systems. Therefore, you begin with addressing this base as you organize satyagragas or agitations in front of the political symbols of power. You have to also probably agitate in front of the conscience of this social base, which is abetting silently the political, cultural, civil war here in India. Now, come together, everyone, with a common agenda. There are so many, countless number of groups operating there. But do we have a common agenda, a common roadmap, with the understanding that we are facing a political, cultural, civil war. And as I said, considerable amount of money flow to these organizations, which are fomenting the agenda of communalism. It comes from the Western Hemisphere. Please map the financial and political infrastructure of these communal forces there. There is no point anymore saying there are, we have to play cautiously this way, there, and so on, because we are facing a political, cultural, civil war that can completely engulf India. So therefore, from your end, possibly map the financial and political infrastructure of the RSS forces there. Just take the people who signed up for, I understand, in my little study, more than 501 organizations signed up for Modi's visit when he visited first. Look at these organizations, treat them as they are funding the political and cultural civil war in India, and ensure that there is a cost to pay. They will not go scot-free, supporting a civil war a civil war of hatred in India, and enjoy all the democratic advantages there in India. I mean, the same people who want every freedoms, every advantages there in India, every protection that is provided by the beautiful democratic traditions and values and institutions of the United States, the same people who want to promote a hate agenda and build institutions and convert even state agencies which are openly and blatantly communal. Therefore, let not India be slaughtered at the altar of bigotry. And coming to 2024 elections will be a watershed watershed moment. And whatever you could contribute, I'm not a great supporter of this party or that party. I'm someone who do not have trust in any political party completely. But then they are the parties who have they are our victims. So 2024 is an important election. In whatever ways you can mobilize your energies and resources to do your bit to see if there could be a change of government, which will at least temporarily put a spoke on the wheel of this war machine. And as I said, as part of the agenda, if you can build a global social media, not just network, a proper professional social media organization through which you can tell the story to the wider world how dangerous this RSS Parivar is, and what they can do to not only to peace in India, peace in the region, and they can be a threat to global peace and global order. So for that to be communicated, you need a highly professionally organized social media network. These are some concrete steps you could possibly take. But you have just come together, continue the conversation, continue to dialogue. And of course, right now, our focus is Manipur. We stand by the people of Manipur. As our sister said, the relief measures may not reach those people. But let us prepare and do the necessary preparations. When things get better, we should rush in there. We should go in there to help them, to be with them, not just the Kuki people. If Meitei people were affected and if their lives were destroyed, and we have to be with them also. We are for all. We are for every human being. If we are only for Christians, then we are not Christians at all. We are for everyone, every human being who is a child of God. So therefore, let's prepare ourselves to rebuild their lives, to rebuild the churches that were burned down there. In whatever ways we could be of, fraternal assistance in solidarity, we should be there, and let's begin preparations by now. But let's not forget the larger picture and the larger war that's confronting us. And we have a duty to be in the forefront of this war on behalf of love, friendship, and humanity. Thank you very much for this wonderful and meaningful opportunity.
Thank you so much, Father. You are inspiring as always. It's already in the East Coast, 12:15. So, like many of our speakers and the participants here from East Coast. So we are going to wrap up. Before that, there are a couple of participants, they wanted to ask questions or talk. So we are going to give opportunity to one or two. So the first we have Mr. Chandra Mogan. Mr. Chandra Mogan, if you could unmute. Yes,
Hi.
Chandra Mogan.
Thank you for having me. I don't want to take too much of your time. First thing is I have a question. About a month and a half back, I was trying to see if I can send some relief materials to the people of Manipur, especially to the tribals. So I was talking to one of the tribal representatives, and she was saying that we can't send it through Impal and it gets impounded by the security forces. And she was asking me if I can send it through Aizwal. Aizol, I think it's a capital of Mizoram. I just wanted to know if is it true. Is that a possibility to send it through Aizol? That's one question first I want to ask.
Yes, so I mentioned that in my when I talked, and I also reiterated it when somebody else mentioned it. It is absolutely true. You cannot send anything to Impal if it's meant for Lamka, Churchandpur side. You have to have contacts, and you can reach me privately. I can hook you up with people who can guide you. We've done that with another pastor, Do Good for All organization, because you can, if you send it to Impal, it will go to the Meiteis. But if you want to send relief to Lamka, it has to go through Aizol. We also have Kuki Zomi people in Kangpokpi side, which for that one, you have to send it through Nagaland, and they will get it because Kangpokpi is before Impal on highway number 2. So they will get that. But for Lamka, the only way to access is through Mizoram today, unfortunately.
Thank you. I will definitely get in touch with you. My name is Chandra Mohan. I'll send my, I'll put my number in the chat. There are only a couple of things I want to say. We are all angry. We are all desperate. We feel the pain. But truth be told, this whole Manipur issue, it's not because of RSS, it's not because of BJP it is happening, it's not because of Adani. It is because of the indifference of people that it is happening. For 90 plus days, how can a democracy be quiet? We should have gathered in front of Modi's house and demanded answers and put an end to it. We didn't do it. So we are sorry. I just want to apologize, on behalf of all those people who have been fuming inside. But we have been inactive. That is all I can say. And but it's about time that we start doing something about it. And one of the speakers spoke about how the children have this distended stomach, and they're starving out there. And it hurts so deep because there's a Tamil saying, one of our poet Bharadiyar used to say, "Tani oru manidanukku unavillai jagathine ezhuthiduvom." It means even if one person doesn't have food, let's destroy the world. That's how much anger he had, or how much he cared. And that care we didn't have. And so I want to apologize to the people of Manipur that we haven't done our duty as citizens of India. And we'll get better, we'll do better. So thank you for the opportunity. And I will connect with you in regards to the relief materials that can be sent. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Chandra Mogan. Mr. Chandra Mogan, as many of you know, his viral video recently, right? It was doing rounds, and he's the founder of Arappor Yakam. And also, he was involved in the movement against corruption. I think Vijayalakshmi may be knowing him very well, right? Yeah, he was involved in that, and he has recently come out with a video. Thank you, Mr. Chandra Mohan, for joining. Anybody else, if you have any question or want to ask any of the speakers, you can raise your hand, and I will give like 30 seconds to do that. Okay, right, we don't. So
Austin, can I just say something? So
sure.
We have some personal stories. I think sometimes it helps to read the personal stories. I didn't want to get too much into my story, my family story, but I think most of you know that they're all displaced and in Delhi, and we are the lucky ones, but there are many others. So if you go to namta.us, namta.us, that is our organization. You can see Namta on my background, but it's not .org, it's .us. You can read personal stories, and we also have the data for the churches burned, etc. So if you want to learn more about Manipur issue, we are coming from the Kuki Zomi perspective, so you'll have all the data there. But you can always reach out to me, and you can always ask Austin for my number. We're here to spread awareness, and any help is appreciated. Once again, namta.us.
Thank you so much, Niang. Thank you for the information. And we have Bhuvana Karunagaran. She want to say something. I'm going to, yes.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for allowing me to speak, Austin. I have a specific question. We are all very busy here with everything that's going on in our lives, but we deeply, deeply care about what's going on out there in India, especially the past few years have been hell. It's crisis after crisis after crisis after crisis. One thing that really hurts me is that when something happens, only those people who are directly affected, somebody else has spoken about it, they speak about it, they cry about it, and then, and they go on. The lesson that we have to learn is every time something happens to somebody, we all must gather around and speak up. Not Christians, not Muslims, not Hindus, not farmers, not fishermen. Any human being, when they're mistreated, when they're oppressed, we all have as human beings, as decent human beings, we all must speak up. Having said that, I want to know what are some of the things that we can do from here, either through social media and other things. Do you have like a formal letters that we can send it to our congressmen and other politicians here to spread the word? I was trying to make Facebook profile picture frame. Can somebody draft that? We really need to know what kind of words to use that will go viral, things like that. If it's good to have conferences like this, but we need to have specific goals and and specific things that you need to tell us to do, so we can go out there and do and get this task done. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Father, you want to respond, Father?
Yeah, I know Bhuvana will. She has been very active and so very, very worthy suggestion. Thank you, Bhuvana.
Thank you, Father. So now I invite Lasser for order of thanks.
Right. Thanks, Austin. Thank you, everybody. I'd like to take a few moments to thank everybody who came out and spoke in spite of all the busy schedule. Just in the interest of time, I'm not going to go through every single speaker. I think that was done by Father Gaspar just before this. And I also want to thank everybody who paid attention to this virtual conference, and I would like to thank Austin especially for hosting it. Giving the infrastructure that is needed to host this virtual conference. Lots and lots of information, many different angles, and Niang, what you had said about the relief not reaching the people, I think that is a very, very important message, because a lot of people assume things are reaching the right people. I think that was one of the main take-home message for me at least, and I'm pretty sure for everybody else as well. So I do like to close out this conference by giving saying thanks to everybody who had contributed to this one-of-a-kind event. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Lasser. Thank you so much for giving a vote of thanks. So everyone, as we come to an end of this insightful virtual conference, Defend Humanity and Defend Democracy, like you all, those who joined in the Zoom or those who watch been on different live stream platforms, I also stand here inspired and moved by the inspirational sharing and speeches by each one of you. We all spend like around 2 hours hearing valuable speeches from around 10 speakers, how to defend democracy and how to defend humanity and how to stand united. And I also extend my thanks to the speakers and organizers behind the stage, right? We have a lot of people like Johnson, Grace, Julian, and Sean. Sean did a lot of coordination work, and thank you, Sean, and all the participants who came. is beyond midnight. I mean, some of you even living in East Coast, you joined. Thank you so much. And I also take this opportunity to invite all the viewers. Don't be bystanders. Don't be passive spectators. Please join us. Join us for not just cause, for all the causes. Let us come together. Let us become agents of positive change. Let us become champions of peace. Let us pledge to defend democracy. Let us pledge to defend humanity. Wherever, not in India, wherever it may be threatened, we need to stand united. We need to stand united against any form of violence anywhere. We need to stand against communalism. We need to, not just as Christians or Hindus or Muslims, beyond that, we need to. We have the power to make a difference in our communities. So in our descriptions, wherever you watch this online, you have like our group, Defend Democracy, and we have, a couple of groups for this Manipur causes, and many of you are part of the groups, so you can join. And we have like a lot of our like-minded group, like our Sean's groups and other groups, so you can join those groups. And let this virtual conference be a beginning of a transformative journey. Together, let us sow the seeds of compassion, tolerance, and empathy. And please do take some time to share this video link, to share in your friends, in your WhatsApp groups, with your family. Let us have some dialogue. Let us continue to have a dialogue. Let us amplify our efforts by sharing to defend democracy and humanity. Let us stand up against communalism, like through our dialogues in the social media, through our dialogue in our family, with our friends. Let us teach our kids. Let us talk to our Hindu friends, Muslim friends, everybody, to say no to violence in Manipur, no to hatred anywhere. Let us do that. Once again, thank you so much. And with this, we are going to conclude this. Thank you. Nandri, Vanakkam.
Thank you, Austin.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.